Okay, there you go. Okay, so hi, I'm Angela. I'm a junior at Granada Hills Charter High School. Han, do you want to introduce me?
Yeah. My name is Han. I'm a senior.
And Kira and Ugo, do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
My name is Ugo. I am an incoming freshman at MIT.
And my name is Kira, and I'm also an incoming freshman at MIT.
Awesome. Do you guys want to elaborate on what you guys are like studying, like your interests?
Okay, I plan to go into computation and cognition, which is a joint intramural major between EECS Program 6, which is computer science and electrical engineering, as well as course 9, which is neuroscience.
And I haven't really figured it out yet, but I'll probably go into course 6, which is computer science.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so let's get started with the questions for today. So the first question is, can you give us a quick overview of your high school experience? Like, how was it overall for you across all 4 years?
Okay, so mine was pretty hectic. I moved from Georgia to Miami after my freshman year, so that change was kind of a hit. Plus, there was a culture shock associated with being in different cities of different states. And I also started the IB program in my sophomore year. And there's a preparation for the IB during your freshman and sophomore year. So I didn't get that freshman year of preparation. So it was kind of like a slap in the face in terms of academic standpoint. But overall, I think the adaptation part of the moving process was pretty quick, and I was able to assimilate into the environment in a reasonable time being. But in general, the high school experience was pretty fun. I was involved in different organizations, and those organizations shaped specific experiences associated with each school. And graduating from Miami also gave me a lot of opportunities I didn't have in Georgia. So it was pretty nice.
I would say that my high school experience was also pretty fun, but a little hectic as well, because I just like to bounce from a lot of activities. So I kind of hit everything. I did musical theater for a bit, did leadership, and then eventually ended up on the academic decathlon team. Overall, I had a really fun 4 years in California, and yeah.
Han, do you want to ask the next question?
Okay. What clubs were you guys involved in at school?
Okay, my freshman year, that's pretty interesting because going into the freshman year, they had elections for SGA, and I wasn't sure how it worked, but I ran and I got vice president that year for freshman before I moved to Miami. And I also did band, and I did district honor band for my district, Henry County in Georgia. And I was also involved in FBLA, the Future Business Leaders of America Association. And when I moved to Miami, I continued FBLA, and I did multiple competitions, specifically business communication competitions regionally. And I did HOSA, which is the Health Occupation Students of America Association, because I plan to go into medical sciences. I did leadership for the school. They had specific leadership for each class. I was involved in the junior and senior leadership programs. And yeah, that's all I can name off the top of my head right now.
In freshman year, I did musical theater, and I was a part of our school in Granada. I was part of our GDC curriculum, so it's just the basic, curriculum. In sophomore and junior year, I was a part of ASB, so Associated Student Body, although we were online for part of it, so that put a little bit of a damper on the plans. I was a part of the National Honor Society and the California Scholarship Federation. In junior year, I was vice president, and then senior year president. And then in senior year, I also was a part of the academic decathlon program.
Oh, okay. That's awesome. Okay. Among all like the clubs and organizations you did at your school, which would you say was your favorite and why?
Okay, so I originally hadn't mentioned it, but my favorite was Mu Alpha Theta, my school's math honor society, specifically at Ferguson in Miami. That's my favorite because when I first moved to the school, that was kind of the first club I joined, so kind of has a home feel to it. And the competitions that we went to were great for bonding as well as accelerating your mathematical progress. And I did end up getting vice president junior year and president senior year. And that helped me in terms of leadership skills. I was able to plan going to competitions and the state competitions. And I was also in charge of coaching specific curriculums like the MOOC, which is Calc, Alpha, which is pre-calc, and Theta, which is Algebra 2 and below. So going over those curriculums helped me better my own mathematical understandings.
I'd probably say that my favorite was ASB because it was just a fun class. It was a good place to meet people, even though it wasn't like super rigorous academically. I just had a very good time like meeting new people, and like even like when you're setting up for like pep rallies and stuff, like you're wrapping the ribbons around with other people, and it's really just a group activity. And I've always enjoyed working in group settings rather than individual ones. So I got a lot out of that experience. I got a lot of friends, but also just a lot of practice and, you know, dealing with people, learning to compromise when you're setting up different events and other things like that.
Did you guys have a favorite class?
Yes, my favorite class was, I did the IB program, and my favorite class over the 3 years I did it was IB Chem. Mostly because I didn't understand it at first, but once it clicked, it kind of came to me. And for that reason, I enjoyed spending time in the class and doing work outside the class. And the HL curriculum, although it changed after COVID in 2020, I found it interesting, and I was able to do a lot with it. Specifically, my IA, the research question was insightful, and for the most part, I enjoyed it aside from specific instances. But yeah.
I have to say, I'm gonna say two. My first one will probably be computer science principles because AP computer science principles because I mean, obviously I want to go into computer science, so it was a subject that I really enjoyed. But also because it was introductory and not really like super focused on one topic, we got to cover like a wide breadth of things. Like I got to learn about AI, but also like facial recognition, and then almost like the hardware side of computers. And so I thought that that was really fun to get a base overview. And I think that that would like jump started my love for computer science. And then also I want to say art history, even though it's like completely unrelated to anything else that I'm taking or what I want to major in. I just thought it was really interesting. And now like just learning like the history behind certain types of like architecture pieces. And like now I walk around and I'm like, oh, that's a Doric column. And it's like, it's really nerdy, but I had a lot of fun. And I think I gained a lot of knowledge just about the world, but through like a fun medium, like through looking through art.
Yeah, it sounds really fun. Yeah. What do you think, like, which class for you was the hardest, and how did you kind of like overcome that?
My hardest class was history, purely because I wasn't able to make those connections that you need to make while studying history and relating it back to current time periods as well as past time periods. And going through that, I had a really great teacher. It was contemporary history for senior year, European history for sophomore year, and American history for junior year. And the chronological order of that was kind of difficult to retain. Personally, I think if we had done American history first and European history after, it would have followed more in terms of chronological events. But it was difficult because I wasn't able to relate the history of each continent with each other in a timely frame. But yeah, like I said, I had a great teacher, so I worked through it. But that was by far the most difficult class I took.
I would say probably a push, so AP US history, just because I didn't enjoy it. I wasn't really interested in it, and I think it had a pretty heavy workload. And then like when you're not motivated to complete it, that was my main issue. Like I had friends in the class, and like my teacher was a pretty good teacher. It's just because I didn't have that personal motivation. It made it a hard class for me to feel interested in and like complete the homework and just in general want to go to. I also have it during our COVID year. So it was like I had to wake up early and then it's like log on to, and I really just did not enjoy going to that class. But it wasn't too bad, just like course wise. It was just my personal motivation.
Oh,
If you could relive high school, what would you guys do differently?
That's a hypothetical question. I think I would have started high school and finished high school in Miami, purely because I feel like if I was there for longer, I would have had the opportunity to do more. in comparison to being there for only 3 years. But yeah, that's my answer.
I mean, my if I could redo it, mine would be pretty just specific to like our high school. Like I would have taken certain courses sooner. Like I probably would have tried to take computer science in freshman year versus I started taking it in sophomore year. Or I would have done ASB earlier or something like that. But in general, I pretty much like the way that I handled high school in terms of like just like communicating with others and making friends and like hanging out with my groups and everything like that.
And now moving on into like more of the college side of things. So how many schools did each of you apply to, and like how'd you pick out those schools?
I had a list of 3 schools. I was ready all be all for those 3 schools, but naturally I had to expand it because you don't know your chances of getting to any school. But I ended up applying to 15 total schools, 4 of which were in my home state, which at the time was Florida, and other schools around the country. But yeah, I go to MIT now.
I applied to 12. It was originally going to be more than that. And then I got COVID and missed a bunch of deadlines. So, but honestly, I would say that's a good number. 10 to 15 is a good number. Like any more than that. I mean, it depends on like how many reach or like safety schools you're going to apply to, but I found that 12 was a pretty good number just in terms of like balancing my workload at school, but then also balancing like you have to write all these essays and get them out and personalize them for each school.
Yeah.
Since you guys have obviously is done with the application process, do you guys have like any tips?
My approach to the application process as a whole, I'm not going to say it was unique because I feel a lot of people go through the same thing I did. I didn't procrastinate the essays. I just underestimated the time it would take to write the essays in total. So I didn't start writing them until a couple days before each of their deadlines. And that time crunch during winter break was real. And probably the most given tip, as it should be, is to start early. Read the prompts so you can formulate essays. Even if you're not writing them, you should at least know what you're going to write so you have an idea of how you're going to structure the essay and what you're going to talk about. I'd also say when you're writing, try to stay away from an expository sense of writing because you're explaining yourself, but you're not explaining the specific things that happen between you and the application process, because it has to be personalized in that when someone is reading it, they should hear your voice. And if they don't hear your voice, then it could be anybody writing that essay. So I feel like that personalization helps in making sure your voice is heard. And the terminology I used, or I was given when I asked for help. I asked help from an upperclassman at MIT because he went to my school. He said to show, not tell, as in when you're writing, you shouldn't be telling your experiences, but you should rather show how those experiences formulated who you are as a person right now and how it specifically applies to that school that you're applying to.
So I'm going to say I definitely procrastinated. And so like Ugo said, don't put it off, okay? Yeah. I started my MIT application the day it was due. And then I got COVID and I missed it. So don't do that because it's stressful. So I would definitely start early because then you can like, sometimes like it takes time to go over and revise. And like, yeah, maybe you can churn out that essay in an hour, but it's also like, think about how much better that essay could have been if you had sat on it. Like I've gone back and I read my essays and I let that go through. So yeah. Definitely give yourself time to sit on it, start early. I would also say like, don't take it too seriously. Don't try to say what you think they want to hear. Just tell your story, because those little quirks and those little things that like make your essay from you, that's the thing that they want to see. You know, they've seen other people who are going to be in your honor society and who are in the IB program, but having your own signature way of writing and telling your story, that's important. So don't lose your voice.
Yeah, that's great advice. For high schoolers in general, like of all grade levels, what's like a piece of advice you'd have for how they should like navigate what they're doing now or like what they should be thinking of?
I'll break it down by each grade level. In 9th grade, you should always be looking ahead at what's next. Sure, you should be focused on what's happening right now, but that preemptive looking ahead is what helps you when you get to ahead. Freshman year, you should see what you can do at that moment to better yourself for the future, whether that includes taking introductory classes for specific courses that you want to take later on, or simply attending meetings at specific organizations you want to later on possibly in leadership for or participate later on. Sophomore year, it's more of the same, but this time you're more acclimated to the school, so you don't have to look around and see what's happening. You know what's happening because you've been there for a year. So it's more of making sure that your grades are fine and bettering yourself for these upcoming positions or organizations that you're looking at. Junior year, you should be looking ahead at college applications, but it's not your main worry right now. Objectively, I find that junior year is personally my most difficult year of high school, not because of the course load or anything, but because of it was also COVID year, so I feel like I'm kind of biased in that aspect. But yeah, it was objectively my most difficult year of high school. So once you rough through that, senior year, the first semester, which is when college apps are usually deal with the deadlines and essays, the prompts are being released, that and making sure your first semester quarter grades are fine, that should be your main focus. And along the way throughout junior year, senior year, keeping up with organizations and making sure that what you're doing is in line with what you want to do in the future. And then senior year, finishing out the senior year strong, that's very important because various colleges have conditional acceptances in which if your performance drops, you can't really do much in terms of withholding your admission. And yeah, after senior year, you enjoy your summer. And yeah, that's about it.
So I would say, so I was a person who, like, going into high school, I knew I wanted to go into the STEM field, but I didn't know which field. So I definitely spread myself, like I would do this and this and this, and I never really like honed it down to a specific field. And I would say, like, if you can, try to avoid that, because instead of, like, colleges don't necessarily want the most well-rounded kid. They don't necessarily want a kid who does sports and plays an instrument and also has the best grade. Like, they want somebody to, like, they want people who are passionate about things. And so if you know what you want to do, I would say find ways to demonstrate that interest and follow through with them. So if you find a club that you really like keep being a part of it, try to get a leadership position, find ways to show interest. And then also, what was I gonna say? Yeah, don't let your performance drop.
Yeah.
But also, since I don't know what grade everybody here is in, but there's a tendency to be like, oh, you know, college is like upcoming, so you don't need to worry about your grades yet. Just try your hardest in school, because even if you're not interested in a subject, like I wasn't in US history, there's still a lot of things you can get out of it if you apply yourself. And it also sets you up well for your future. You learn different study habits and stuff like that. So I would just say, like, take school seriously, pay attention to your interest. And yeah, I had another one, but I forgot it.
So how did you guys first discover your interest in what you guys are majoring?
In fourth grade, when I was in Georgia, my fourth grade teacher, Dr. Pham, she played the movie Gifted Hands, which is the autobiography of Ben Carson, starting from his childhood to his eventual neurosurgery. And that piqued my interest in neurosurgery. And I got the book that the movie was based on. I read the book. I found it interesting. I kept up with neurosurgery over the years. So I think I started pretty early. But when I got to high school, I realized that there are plenty of other interests that I could do. So I kind of branched off. I took different courses that weren't specifically related to STEM, specifically bio and chemistry. I found that helped me specify exactly how I wanted to do. That's how I found out about computer science and why I wanted the joint major between computer science and neurosurgery. So in terms of finding your interest, I'd say you have to have choices to choose from, so you don't make a choice that you eventually regret. So putting yourself out there and finding different things to do is the best way of going about it.
Yeah, exploring all the avenues is important.
Mhm.
My parents, they're both in, like, kind of computer science. My dad, he does IT, And my mom also did some software for school districts. So I was always surrounded by computer science. I would say that I started to pay attention to it more. I remember also in fourth grade, we were playing this website called Code Combat, where you could like code little like you could code your soldier to like fight ogres. And I remember being like, everyone was playing Pop Tropica, but I was like really into this website, and I was really into like coding it, going up into the thing and fighting the ogres. And it's like little things like that that catch your attention, like pay attention to them. Like that was, well, I didn't realize that I wanted to do computer science for like a couple more years until I took computer science principles in 10th grade. That was something that like initially piqued my interest. And so if there's something that you really had an interest in as a kid, find out if you can do it as a major, find out if it was putting together Legos, look into different types of engineering and stuff like that.
Yes, that's amazing. During like high school, I know it's like kind of hard to manage a lot of activities and everything. So were there any like specific tools or tricks that you guys use to manage your time better?
I feel like my experience was special because a lot of the clubs and organizations were run by the same people. It was very cyclical, as in the same people were running all the organizations. So they made sure that the time didn't overlap. So it was pretty convenient for me in terms of juggling all the things, because IB in itself, you have a lot of things to do. There are always deadlines. There are always assignments to submit. I didn't keep a calendar, but my friends did. So I'd log into the Google Calendar to see what to do tomorrow or see what to do the next week. I think having something that's structured, visually structures, being able to see is important. It visually structures what you have to do and gives you specific timeframes to accomplish those tasks. That's really important. And knowing how long each task is going to take is also important, because you would always underestimate or overestimate yourself, or underestimate the amount of time that it will take you to complete those tasks, which then again pushes back everything. So it's a kind of a frame shift. But yeah, time management and being able to visually see what exactly you have to do in accomplishing those tasks.
For me, I never really kept a planner or a calendar, but I always found it really important just writing things down, like writing it down somewhere, texting it to myself was really important, remembering it. If I just was like, okay, I'll remember that, chances were I would not remember doing that thing or that it was due. So even if it's just writing it down on a little post-it, that's how I always personally kept track of different obligations that I had. I think also, if you are a person who keeps a planner, it's very important to keep up with that. I remember I forgot to mention in extracurriculars, I did the COVID-19 project, which is like a virtual tutoring program. And I would say that that was a lot of like scheduling. And so that was very important to use a calendar. Google Calendar, pretty good tool. You log into your Gmail and it's already there. So definitely use those resources that you have at your fingertips. I know that like our school, sometimes it gives out planners. So even if you're not a person who likes to use them, try using them, like use the resources at your fingertips. Don't just rely on yourself, because like Hugo said, you'll always overestimate what you can remember or how long it'll take to do things.
Yeah, that's great advice. And as of now, like how is college so far? I know you like kind of recently moved in. So like what is, from what you've seen so far, what is like the reality versus like your expectations?
It aligns with my expectations, and it doesn't. When you first get here, you realize it's a lot more freedom than you anticipate, even though you're already going into it expecting there to be a lot of freedom. You can do a lot, but that doesn't mean you should do a lot, because there's no one to stop you from doing these things. So it kind of helps you assign yourself some sort of self-control. And in terms of education, college is very, very similar to high school. But the thing about college is when you're doing the work itself, it's more individual based, as in you have more of an obligation to do it, because you can very much not do the work. And like I said, it comes down to self-control and how you approach the situation. But in terms of education, you have to, it goes back to the product. Last question was
How you manage your
manage your time. College is very much about time management, seeing what you can do, how you can do it, and when you can do it. So being able to structure your time and make sure that you're getting things in on time We haven't started classes yet, but I'm assuming when we start doing that, that's how it's going to go down.
So I was a part of this program called the Interface program, which just finished, and it's basically like an introduction to campus and classes. So, you're on, well, I was in the online cohort, so we spent time on Zoom and we actually had assignments. So I would say I already had some assignments under my belt. I already got humbled a little bit, but I think the way that college is shaping up is, I think, especially when you go to a university that's like pretty rigorous, don't get in your head of like, oh, it's embarrassing to reach out, it's embarrassing to ask for help. You need to be okay with going to office hours and, like I said, using the resources that are in front of you, asking your TAs, asking your professors for help if you don't understand a subject, because it's not like high school where a counselor is going to like hold your hand and make sure that you're passing and you're getting the subject. You just won't fail and you just won't get it. So you need to, there's a point of like self-advocacy of like, I need to stand up for myself, or yeah, I want to go get Shake Shack with friends, but maybe I need to go to sleep and I need to go and have a good sleep schedule, or just everything. And like trying to balance that, I feel like it hasn't been, we're lucky right now that we're in this intermediate period where like classes haven't started yet, but we're on campus already. So there's been a bit of a break to catch up on things. But when school gets started, it's going to be really about finding that balance, and any responsibilities that our parents had, it's time for us to now assume that and toss it into our schedule. And yeah.
So across all the years, the high school years, how did you guys stay motivated to get into good college?
This type of thing starts really early on. It generally starts from 9th grade. In 9th grade, the motivation I had kind of dimmed out. I remember very vividly. After the first day, I didn't feel like doing it anymore. I wasn't messing with high school at all. I still did pretty good that year, but the motivation to do well wasn't there. But again, the move helped me. It reinvigorated the academic senses. The environment was also different because I started IB. I forgot the question.
Question was, no, I don't remember it.
Yeah.
How did you guys stay motivated to get into a good
Okay. Yeah, like I said, the environment really, really matters. The clubs you're in, the teachers you have, the friend group that you're in, those things really go a long way in terms of making sure that you're continuing to do the work. And there's also a sense of when you do something, you feel good about it. I can't remember the word, but there's a sense of that whenever you get a task done. And that feeling, it's kind of addicting. So you want to keep having that, right? And I'd say the most time when I lost motivation, like again, I think it's specific to our class, but junior year, because of COVID, that really took a hit on everybody's motivation to do some amount of work. And then again, during senior year, after college apps were done and we were just waiting for results, we still had to keep up the same amount of productivity and amount of work that we we're doing in that second semester of senior year. So I think pushing through and focusing at the end of the tunnel for that light, the light at the end of the tunnel, that really helps you in terms of keeping your mind on track and staying motivated.
So I will say that like, I think it's pretty easy to stay motivated when it's something that you like even if you're a student, even if you're not like a student that is really, really motivated all the time and you don't necessarily care about your grades, when you're in a class that you enjoy, it's easier to keep up with it. I think for me, I've always been pretty motivated early on, ever since I was little, to try to do well academically. And I guess I would say, like, if you're somebody who isn't like that and like wants to be like that, making little rewards for yourself, because it is very fulfilling when like you set a goal and you're like, I want to get a 90 on this test, and then you get a 95 and it's like, I want that feeling again. So I think for me, it would be setting those goals, maybe treating yourself like, oh, if I do well and if I study for this final and I do well on it, then I will go to a concert or something. Setting those goals and those little like rewards can help incentivize you to just try harder, be more motivated, and hopefully that turns into like better results. And then also about that light at the end of the tunnel, I remember coming back at the end of academic decathlon season, right after the season had finished, we were coming in and then it was AP testing, and like AP testing didn't matter as much because like grades were over and college decisions had come out. And it's just like, I just had to think about like, what do I lose if I don't do this? It's almost like, I got into this school, but it's like, I don't want to lose it if I suddenly let my performance drop. Or how would I feel if I spent 180 days in school learning about this topic and I just didn't show up for the last thing and I got a 0, or that's not how college work works, but I just completely fail out of the AP exam. So try to think of it as like treating your time well. Like, I put all this time in, I deserve to have the reward of that. I deserve to get a good grade on this exam. And I think that's what helped me get through to the end of senior year and finish all my assignments, despite feeling unmotivated and, senioritis and all that.
Yeah, that's really, really good insight. So we have a couple of audience questions that I got. Someone direct messaged me. They asked, which AP is the most difficult for each of you guys, and how did you manage it? I know Kira, you kind of already answered this with a push, but if you guys could just kind of, I guess, talk about like another one maybe, or yeah.
I'll break it down into the course itself and the exam. The most difficult course that I took was, I think it was AP European history. Mostly because going into it, I didn't have a base of history itself. So it was kind of starting from scratch. I had taken AP World freshman year, but that didn't really prepare me for AP European history. In terms of exam, the AP biology exam was difficult. The course content itself wasn't too hard to understand, but the way that the exam itself was structured, I found it hard to follow along throughout the exam writing process. But it was fun taking the exam because I didn't get it, but it was really nice.
So besides a push, I would say maybe biology as well, AP Bio, just because I think it was also the COVID year. A lot of this falls back on the very unique circumstances of being online and Zooming. But I didn't feel like I had as good of a grasp on the material. And then I just sat there and like, they time yourself. You're supposed to, I'm supposed to take 90 seconds per question. And then you stare at a question for 5 minutes and then you're like, oh,
yeah.
And then toward the end, you're running out of time. So you're answering every question with like 30 seconds. So that was my AP Bio exam. And so that while I didn't think that the course was bad, it was also because we were on Zoom and we had shortened class times. So yeah, AP Bio and A push. I just don't like history. So
Yeah, it's fair. History is like a tough subject for me too. Another person asked, how many hours did you sleep in junior and senior year on average?
I think I'm a special case. I slept a lot. I go to bed at 10 and I always wake up at 4. So that's a consistent 6 hours. Sometimes I go to bed earlier, but I always wake up at 4. And mostly,
4 a.m.?
Yeah. Mostly because I can stay up late, but I don't really see the need to, because my school didn't assign a lot of work to the point where I had to stay up to do it. And if there was work, I just wake up and do it in the morning. So, and to save sleep and to get more sleep, making sure that you have the willpower, because if you don't have the willpower, you can't accomplish this, but to do these assignments once you get them, because you don't always have to wait till the last minute to do these. Like if you have a chemistry assignment and you know it's going to take you a half hour, that half hour doesn't have to be the day before it's due. That can be when you get home or during a break in class. And making sure you knock out those assignments when you can, that's very helpful if you want to save sleep at the end of the day.
I'm a different case. Okay, so my thing is that whenever I have an assignment and let's say I'm procrastinating on it, or it's just a really hard assignment, my thing is like the sleep is always the first thing to go, because I'm not a person, like some people are like, okay, I'm going to bed and then I'll set my alarm early and I'll wake up and do it. But I'm always afraid that I didn't plan enough time. So I'll just stay up until I do it. So that doesn't help. But junior year, because when you're online, it's very easy to just like get up and roll out of bed. Sometimes you're still in bed, and you're doing your Zoom. And then afterwards sorry, there is a gnat in here. But sometimes you wake up, you roll out of bed. It's a lot smaller commitment. There's no travel time. there's less laundry being done, less getting ready time, you're sitting back on the Zoom. So I didn't need to wake up as early and I didn't need to like take as much time to get ready. That said, I did go to sleep at like 5 a.m. many nights and had class at 8 a.m. And that was my fault. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. And it wasn't necessarily because of work, but like I would do work and then I would stay up and watch an episode of some show. And so that was not, I was like, and then senior year was actually better because I don't like to drink caffeine because I don't want to like get withdrawal and like headaches and stuff like that. So in order to like actually stay awake for school, I had to get enough sleep. Otherwise, I would like be sleeping in every class. So I would say that I got probably 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours a night in senior year. Junior year was not that case though.
Oh wow. 5 a.m. is like, oh, okay, wow. Yeah,
The sun
it's like,
came up, and I was like, oh, okay, it's time to go to bed now.
Yeah.
oh my God. I know some friends right now who have that sleep schedule. It's a little scary. So like with like having very limited sleep, you guys probably do a lot during the day. Another person was wondering, did you guys do any like sports or music related like activities outside of school or in school?
Okay, like I said, freshman year I had wind symphony I played the trombone. I also did district honor band, but that was in the fall. And I did play sports. I got injured though, so I don't play sports anymore. But yes, I played sports my freshman and sophomore year. And that would happen directly after school. Sometimes they'd have before school practices, but that was very limited. That also goes along, time management also goes a long way with that. Knowing that you have practice right after school, so you have less time to do these assignments, that really helps. I mean, having a schedule really helps in knocking out those assignments. And yeah, yeah.
So I don't know, this doesn't count as an instrument, but I did musical theater in middle school and then also freshman year. And then I still do musical theater because time commitments, because I was in ASB and like the two were very conflicting and then stuff like that. But yeah, that's kind of it. I didn't play sports. A lot of people here do they do sports or they like play an instrument. Some people do both. Don't feel like you have to also play an instrument, stuff like that, to get into good schools. But yeah.
Oh yeah, it's nice. In your free time, what did you guys typically do? Like, would you guys like play video games, like watch shows? What would you guys enjoy spending your like extra time doing?
Freshman year, I was an avid League player, and then I got permabanned, so I don't play anymore. And after that, I didn't really play any more games. In terms of spending my time, I actually don't know. Like I just sit there and time passes, I guess. But I did read a lot. I still do read a lot, and that was productive because it was your vocabulary and you get to learn things when you read. So I'd read and play League. But after that, when I was able to go out more, I'd go out in terms of, if it's just going out to eat, we'd like go around the city or something because I lived in Miami. So we go out around the city, learn about landmarks and go on the water. So I think going out and breathing air is very important. You shouldn't be holed up in your room while they're doing assignments. Yeah.
I was an only child, so like I was always like calling other people and I was always bored, just in my own house. So whenever I'm not doing work or whatever, I'm always on the phone with friends, or I'm going out with friends, watching movies, watching TV shows, usually with friends. I like to go to Six Flags a lot, local theme park. So those are a lot of things I just did in my free time. In general, just like consuming media. I'm not the most avid reader, but anything like that. And then I think I would say, since we've gotten here in my free time, it's mainly just going out. Boston's a really good walking city, so we just walked 30 minutes to Shake Shack. So
Mile and a half.
it was a mile and a half. But yeah, so just going out, walking with friends, it's kind of refreshing after doing stuff all day, just to like be out on the town, I guess.
Mhm.
Yeah, sounds really nice. So another person asked, like, oh, Like, what was your family like, and how did like your parents' backgrounds influence what you did in high school, or like basically how your high school and college experience was?
Okay, so it's kind of complicated. We moved around a lot between the time I started school and finished high school. My parents, it's complicated. They changed their occupation a lot. My dad started off in security for online security. Uh, Fun fact, he worked at the Pentagon during 9/11, and he tells me stories about it. And that's why he doesn't want me to do security. So, okay, but yeah, but right now he owns a home care health business. So it's kind of health and business. His degree from, he has his degree in business and finance. And my mom is a psychiatrist, so she did medical school, psychiatric residency. So I think that's where my medical background comes from. And that comes together to me wanting to do competition and cognition. Uh, yes, I forgot the question again, but I hope I answered.
Question is, how did your like family life?
Oh yeah, I
influence
also have
you?
5 siblings, so I'm a very much a people person, and having to deal with that many, I'm the second oldest, having to deal with that many people helped me gain leadership skills. My parents they were home a lot, but they also weren't home a lot. This past spring, they were out of the country for the entire month of April. So I was the pseudo parent because my sister was in college. So I was the oldest person in the house, and I bought groceries, I cooked food, I took them to school. And yeah, I was a pseudo parent. And that helped me personally learn how to live on my own and gain a sense of independence. And that kind of crosses over to what I want to do in school, because there's a lot I learned from that experience, and having to apply it to the medical field that I couldn't have gotten it without them not being here, as off as that sounds.
For me, both of my parents, as I mentioned, they were in IT and other stuff with like software. So that's how I got like my introduction just into computers in general. They were always like, fix it, and like there's always a way to troubleshoot. If not, like go to YouTube, you can figure it out. So I've always been pretty savvy with technology and just interested. And besides that, both of my parents were pretty. They're I don't want to toot their horn here, but they're pretty intelligent. Like they're into learning, they're into
Yeah.
academics. And so even though they were never like helicoptering me and like hovering over me so close that like they're like, did you do your homework? Like, did you do that assignment that's due at 11:59? They let me do my own thing, which I think helped have some level of responsibility. Like they never had to hound me for getting my stuff done and getting my projects done. I've always been very self-sufficient in that regard. And that just helped me with my drive for school. And they've also just always taught me that like the sky's the limit, like you can do anything you put your mind to. And I believe that was really helpful. Like they were willing to drive me to soccer games and stuff like that. And I know I didn't mention doing sports. This is elementary school, but they were always willing to nurture my interests no matter what it was. And
Yeah.
so having that not only free reign, but also support helped me get to where I am today.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, parents play like a big role in everything. And another person was wondering, like, what advice do you have for parents in general? Like, because parents often don't hear their kids' point of views, or they're looking for like some guidance. So, if you had to give any advice, what would you say?
I'll split it into 2: academics and not academics. So personal life and extracurriculars. In terms of the academics, my parents weren't really hounding on me they weren't really on me about school after middle school. During elementary school, grade school to middle school, they were making sure that I was getting my assignments in on time. But I feel like that kind of helped me in high school, for them not being there to make sure I get it done. I kind of had a condition to do it myself. So I think earlier on, enforcing that they do it helps them build the habit of doing it themselves later on. And in terms of personal life, I'd say, like she said earlier, nurture their interests, because that is what they want to do later on. And making sure that they have the opportunities to chase those interests, learn more about it, helps them later on in terms of finalizing that interest and starting early. So that when they eventually do start doing it, they make sure that it was the right decision. And parents have a lot of advice because obviously they've been through a lot, they know a lot, and they've seen some stuff. So naturally they have some sort of insight on most things that we have questions for. And to parents, I'd say there's always going to be a time to tell your child when something is going, like there's always going to be a time to tell them something, and you shouldn't throw it all at them at once. You should spread it out over a period of time so that they can digest it and reason with it. Because if you're just vomiting this information with them, they can't connect it with past experiences and apply it to life in the moment. So making sure to tell them the things that you need to tell them in a specific time frame and a specific time so that they can use it directly. I think that's important too, because if you're giving them needless information that they don't need at the time, it's kind of overbearing a little bit. It's easy for a parent to be overbearing, but it's also great when they're not, because the child has room to grow as well. But I think in general, parents have a good idea of that because it's their child, they have a relationship with their child. So them knowing, it's not a limit, I shouldn't say limit, but that them knowing when to say something, when not to say something, I think they know a lot about that.
I guess I'll also stick with the academic and non-academic. But so for academically, I definitely agree that my parents, honestly, they were never really on me about schoolwork because I was always pretty self-motivated, but it's instilling the importance of learning, ever since I was young, I've always felt like it was important to do well in school. And so if you're able to do that, I think that's an important quality because it just makes the rest of the grades so much easier if you're already self-motivated. But I would say, yeah, letting your child breathe a little for high school is definitely important because it's, this is a transitional time into college and into an adult life. And it's you can't just coddle them and do everything for them. And then the second that they turn 18 or they graduate, you're okay, you're on your own and everything. So I think it's important to have a gradual transition of picking up more responsibilities. Okay, it's your job to know when it's time to study. It's your time to oh, maybe you start washing the dishes, doing your own laundry, stuff like that. Having a gradual buildup, I guess that's kind of blurring into non-academic, but having a gradual buildup of personal responsibilities, that's something that's helped me and has helped me not make it so overbearing going into college and now I have to do my own laundry because I was already doing it at home,
Yeah.
And also I would say that sometimes, while it is important to share your knowledge with your kids, there are some times where kids just want to make their own mistakes. Obviously, don't let them make a mistake that's don't let them get thousands of dollars into debt and stuff like that. But if it's something small, if it's whole milk versus half milk or something small, I personally believe that letting your child make their mistakes is a way that they can personally grow. Not everyone wants to feel like they're getting told what to do all the time. So it also leads to a sense of having your own autonomy. Yeah, I messed up and maybe and I told you so is coming, but being able to kind of explore life my own way has also been important to my feeling of independence. So if you're a parent and sometimes your kid is pushing back, sometimes it might just be easier to say, okay, I'll let you study the way you want to study. And if this test goes bad for you, then we go back to my method. And there's got to be some type of give and take.
All right, I want to add that positive reinforcement goes a long way because making sure that they feel seen is great. For example, if they come to you and say, oh, I got an A on this test, and you say, good job, right? That feels good to them because as a child, you want to make your parent proud. You want your parents to be proud of you. And making sure that you're acknowledging what they're doing for themselves, it helps a lot so they can keep doing it.
I concur.
Yes, great advice. We have 2 last questions. So the first one is, what was a major setback in high school, maybe non-academic related, and how did you deal with that?
Okay, moving was technically academic because I started IB. Non-academic was, I also did Phi Beta Chi, the Science Honor Society. During junior year, we had a competition. It was regional, and after regional, you do state. It was the last question. It was a tiebreaker. We got to the last round because we had won the year prior and we went to state the year prior. I was usually the seniors are the one competing, but I was on the team. I was a junior on team A, And one of the questions, they required you to do a simple math. It was simple arithmetic. It was 9 plus 5, right? And that wasn't the problem, but that was a part of the problem. I mistakenly said 13. And everyone in Zoom knows that it's 14. But I mistakenly said 30. You know when you're thinking fast and you think wrong, right? So that 13 was the part of the calculation that in turn made every other calculation incorrect. And the guilt hit me. It really hit me. And I was speaking with the club advisor, and I was like, ma'am, I don't think I want to do the club next year because I don't think I'm fit for it, right? But everyone has setbacks and everyone has something that they can learn from. And I learned that day that 9 plus 5 is 14 and not 13. But for real, making sure that you recover from those setbacks is it's a personality building activity, and not letting it hit you and you stay down, that's important, because that rebound, that recovery is what makes sure it doesn't happen again. One, and make sure that if it does happen again, you're easily able to recover from it in a way that doesn't negatively affect you later on.
So I guess my personal setback. So I ran for ASB secretary and then very publicly lost. And it was just a personal setback because it's like when you put a lot of time towards something. I'd put in like 2 years at that point. And it's like you feel very passionate about it, and then it's like you don't win, and it's like, especially when like in school you're used to like putting in the work and it pays off, and then like it suddenly doesn't. It's something like you can't just sit there and feel down and beat yourself up. Like take your day, take your week of like, oh man, sucks that didn't happen, but then you have to pick it up and move on. And my way of doing that was just focusing on other extracurriculars. That's when I joined the academic decathlon team. And but also I think it was important that like not just moving on, but like you can't be too afraid of like, you have to have humility, like I'm still on very good terms with like my opponent, and like I still have a lot of friends who were like in the class, and it's like I think it was a very big personal growth moment to just keep going despite like losing, and then also like just finding something new to focus on. And yeah, it helped me get over it quickly and yeah, move on.
Yeah, those are both great stories, and yeah, they're very, very like inspirational. And then for the last question, in your opinion, what part of your application do you think made you unique compared to other applicants?
This is where I say grades don't matter, because if you're applying to top schools, everyone has great grades. That's not going to set you apart. Everyone has great test scores. That's not going to set you apart. Personally, reading back on my essays, I think they were horrible. Like I read them and I laugh because how did I get into these schools, right? But I think when I was speaking, if someone heard me talk right now and they had a conversation with me, and then later on they picked up my paper, they know it was me talking because I use the same. Somehow you can hear my voice in the text, and I think that sets you apart because that's not easy to do. And if you do accomplish it, it's really nice, because I was handing out my papers after. Oh, my school did a program after college. You can hand out your favorite essay to all your teachers. They'd read it, like the essay didn't have a name on it, but the teachers would read it and try to match the essay to the student. And almost all of my teachers matched my essay to me. I found that really insightful in saying that, oh, you can hear my voice in my essay. So I think that's what set me apart.
I really want to pull up my essay right now. I'm trying to think. I would say that like I wasn't afraid to like not think outside the box, but just be a little silly, like everyone, there's a feeling like you need to take it super personally, and like it's like every word counts and every word represents me. But like sometimes it's like you just want to give them an impression of like what's like spending a day is like with you. So I remember I talked about just like I like dancing, and I was like every time I hear music I need to move to it, and I was giving an example like I'm shimmying my shoulders during the choir recital and stuff like that. And so I think showing that little bit of personality and showing that like you're not like you said, everybody has those grades, but having those individuals just like, this is who I am, and like you read those essays and it's like, I don't look at the label when I microwave mac and cheese, and that's how I take the world once it's like having that sorry, that was a weird example, but I very vividly remember reading an essay where they took some random thing and made it into some abstract concept, and it's like, you don't necessarily need to have that show-stopping essay to show what you're about. Just pick the facet of your life that if somebody read, they'd be like, yeah, this is you. And yeah.
I will say that all of my classmates and teachers told me you shouldn't use contractions in your essays. And I use contractions in all of my essays. So I think it makes you sound more human. You're not a robot. Saying I can, no, that's not a contraction. Saying cannot and can't sound better. To me, if I read an essay, unless it's some expository literary essay, but this is it's a personal essay. So saying I can't, one, it takes up less space. Two, it flows better. I think it makes it more personalized. Not to say you can't not use contractions, because there are certain essays that you don't need to, but in general, I think it makes it sound more personalized when you do.
Also, you're on a character count, so like,
yeah, 200 words is not a lot of words.
Yeah, so for the UCs, it's like 150 to describe an activity, and so you start speaking like caveman. You're like, I go meeting, see people. So it's, yeah. So just don't be afraid to sound human. Like, these are humans reading your essays, and they want to see the personality. And I will say that, like, I remember I had a friend who was in MIT, and I was like, oh, so like, how do you like it? And he was like, I love the people here. And I think after being here, it's like, yeah, a lot of the people here are great. And so there's a train. A lot of the people here are amazing and great. And it's like, they're looking for people to fill that energy. They're looking for people who are going to contribute to having such a great community. So just try to get across your personality so they can get a sense of who you are and how you'll contribute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my, you guys are like so good at giving advice. Oh my God. Okay, yeah. Thank you. And because it's like 8 now, I think that kind of concludes our interview, unless anyone from the audience has any.
It's 11 here.
Yeah, the 3-hour time.
Oh wow. Oh yeah, I forgot that. I mean, do you guys plan to go to bed soon, or do you guys still have like?
No.
Okay. Okay. Overall, like, thank you guys for your time. Like, you guys gave like really genuine advice, and it was actually like, very helpful, and like, yeah, thank you guys. And I hope you guys have a great first day of college, and that it isn't like too stressful or anything. And overall, yeah, thank you guys for taking your time to talk with us today.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Have a great day, everyone. Bye.